Hermione came running down the stairs. Mischief!
Hi!
That's you! The chains clinked and withdrew into the arms of the chair. Mrs. Cattermole looked just as frightened as ever before. I don't understand, she whispered. You're going to leave here with us, said Harry, pulling her to her feet. Go home, grab your children, and get out. Get out of the country if you have to. Disguise yourself and run. You've seen how it is. You won't get anything like a fair hearing here. Harry, said Hermione. How are we going to get out of here with all these dementors outside the door? Patronus, said Harry, pointing his wand at his own. The stag slowed and walked, still gleaming brightly toward the door. As many as we can muster. Do you, Hermione? Ich beklo. Ich Patronum. Hermione. Nothing happened. It's the only spell you ever have trouble with, Harry told the completely bemused Mrs. Cattermole. It's unfortunate, really. Come on, Hermione. Ich beklo. Silver Otter burst forth from the end of Hermione's wand and swam gracefully through the air to join the stag. Come on, said Harry, and led Hermione and Mrs. Cattermole to the door. When the Patronesses glided out of the dungeon, there were cries of shock from the people waiting outside. Harry looked around. The Dementors were falling back on both sides of them, melting into the darkness, scattering before the silver creatures. It's been decided that you should all go home and go into hiding with your families, Harry told the waiting Muggleborns, who were dazzled by the light of the Patronesses and still cowering slightly. Go abroad if you can. Just get away from the ministry. That's the official position. Now, if you just follow the Patronesses, you'll be able to leave the atrium. They managed to get up to the stone steps without being intercepted, but as they approached the lifts, Harry started to have misgivings. As they emerged into the atrium with the silver stag and otter soaring alongside it, and 20 or so people, half of them accused of Muggleborns, he could not help feeling that they would attract unwanted attention. He had just reached this unwelcome conclusion when the lift clanged to a halt in front of them. "Reg!" screamed Mrs. Cattermole, as she threw herself into Ron's arms. "Runcorn let me out. He attacked Umbridge and Yaxley, and he's told all of us to leave the country. I think we should do it, Reg. I really do. Let's hurry home and fetch the children and... Why are you so red?" "Water," muttered Ron, disengaging himself. "Harry, they know there are intruders inside the ministry. Something about a hole in Umbridge's office door. I reckon we've got 5 minutes, if that." Hermione's Patronus vanished with a pop as she turned a horror-struck face to Harry. "Harry, we're going to be trapped here." "We won't be if we move fast," said Harry. He addressed the silent group behind them, who were all gawping at him. "Who's got wands?" Half of them raised their hands. "Okay. All of you who haven't got wands need to attach yourself to someone who has. We'll need to be fast before they stop us. Come on." They managed to cram themselves into 2 lifts. Harry's Patronus stood sentinel before the golden grills as they shut and the lifts began to rise. "Level 8, said the witch's cool voice. "Atrium." Harry knew at once that they were in trouble. The atrium was full of people moving from fireplace to fireplace, sealing it off. "Harry!" Hermione squeaked. "What are they going to do?" "Stop!" Harry thundered, and the powerful voice of Runcorn echoed through the atrium. The wizard, sealing the fireplaces, froze. "Follow me," he whispered into the group of terrified Muggleborns, who moved forward in a huddle, shepherded by Ron and Hermione. "What's up, Albert?" said the same balding wizard who had followed Harry out of the fireplace earlier. He looked nervous. "These lot need to leave before we seal the exit," said Harry, with the authority he could muster. The group of wizards in front of him looked at one another. "We've been told not to seal all the exits and not to let anyone... Are you contradicting me?" Harry blustered. "Would you like me to have your families re-examined like I had Dirk Craswell's?" "Sorry," gasped the little balding wizard, backing away. "I didn't mean nothing by it, Albert, but I thought they were in for questioning." "Their blood is pure," said Harry, and his deep voice echoed impressively throughout the hall. Perhaps in many of years, I dare say. Off you go, he boomed to the Muggleborns, who scurried forward into the fireplaces and began to vanish in pairs. The Ministry of Wizards hung back, some looking confused, others scared and resentful. Then, Mary! Mrs. Cattermole looked over her shoulder. The real Reg Cattermole, no longer vomiting, but pale and wan, had just come running out of the lift. Reg? She looked from her husband to Ron, who swore loudly. The balding wizard gasped, his head turning ludicrously from one Reg Cattermole to the other. Hey, what's going on? What is this? Seal the exit! Seal it! Yaxley had burst out of another lift and was running toward the group beside the fireplaces, into which all the Muggleborns but Mrs. Cattermole had now vanished. As the balding wizard lifted his wand, Harry raised an enormous fist and punched him, sending him flying through the air. He's helping Mugglebells escape, Yaxley! Harry shouted. The balding wizard's colleagues set up an uproar, under cover of which Ron grabbed Mrs. Cattermole, pulled her into the still open fireplace, and disappeared. Confused, Yaxley looked from Harry to the punch wizard, while the real Reg Cattermole screamed, My wife! Who was it with my wife? What's going on? Harry saw Yaxley's head turn, saw an inkling of truth dawn on the brute's face. Come on! Harry shouted at Hermione. He seized her hand, and they jumped into the fireplace together as Yaxley's curse sailed over Harry's head. They spun for a few seconds before shooting up into the toilet of the cubicle. Harry flung open the door. Ron was standing there, beside the sink, still wrestling with Mrs. Cattermole. Reg, I don't understand. Let go, I'm not your husband. You've got to go home. There was a noise in the cubicle behind him. Harry looked around. Yaxley had just appeared. This girl! Harry yelled. He seized Hermione by the hand, and Ron by the arm, and turned on the spot. Darkness engulfed them, along with the sensation of compressing bands. But something was wrong. Hermione's hand seemed to be sliding out of his grip. He wondered whether he was going to suffocate. He could not breathe nor see. The only solid thing in the world were Ron's and Hermione's arms, which were slowly slipping away. And then he saw the door of number 12 Grimmauld Place, with its serpentine door knocker. But before he could draw a breath, there was a scream and a flash of purple light. Hermione's hand was suddenly vice-like upon his, and everything went dark. Chapter 14.